Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like we're still waiting on a few attendees, so we're going to go ahead and give it about 2 to 3 more minutes, let everybody filter on, and then we're going to begin at 1 o'clock on the dot. That's 1 o'clock Central, by the way. Alrighty, it is now 1 o'clock Central Time. We are going to go ahead and begin the webinar. Thank you all for joining us. We're so glad you could make it. Just a few housekeeping items before we dive in. Chat lines are open, so if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you should see a little icon that says chat. That's how you'll be able to communicate with myself and our other host. We will be able to see all of your questions. We're happy to answer them. That being said, we will have designated time for Q&A at the end of the session, so feel free to write your questions down and just shoot them all out to us there at the end. This webinar is also being recorded, so you will be able to view the recording of the webinar as well as the slides on the Cantata Health Insider. Our agenda today, we're going to go through just a couple of really brief introductions, then we're going to go over the NetSolutions release 653 SP1 that covers our UI updates and physician orders, and the NetSolutions release 653 SP2. We're going to briefly cover the MDS changes. If you're interested in a more in-depth webinar around MDS changes, we have one coming up next week, and I'll mention that towards the end of the webinar. But then we're also going to show a sneak peek of future updates that are coming down the pipe. So our introductions. Hi, everyone. If you have attended just about any of our webinars in the past, you know who I am. My name is Alexia Cooley. I'm the product marketing specialist here at Cantata Health. Again, my background is in marketing and public health, so I'm happy to be using both of those here at Cantata. And then without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dave Broughton, who's the man of the hour. Dave is our product manager here at Cantata Health. Dave has been with us for 34 years, and he's held numerous positions in support, quality assurance, and account management before moving in to product management. So without further ado, Dave, feel free to take it away.
Well, I've been here 34 years, so obviously that photo is probably a few years old. I look a little older than that now, but anyway, welcome everybody. We're going to talk about our new and improved user interface for NetSolutions. The changes were available in July. We had an early release that was available to clients on a request basis. I think any day now, I don't think it's out there yet, but any day now it should be available on the Insider for any client to download. These changes include changes to the sign-in page. You'll see a new color scheme in place. The menu system has changed. The way we select residents, and again, as I mentioned, the colors. We've also improved the physician order package. So those are the things that we're going to start by going through today. To begin with, this is what our new sign-in page looks like. The colors are changed. We've got a background photo. The links that used to be at down the left side of the page are now across the top. The functionality on the screen is exactly the same. We have had a number of users who have had no training, no webinar, nothing at all, no information, and they start using the new software changes, and they haven't had any trouble. Again, the functionality is the same. It just looks a little different, works a little different. Once you sign into the software, you're going to also then have the facility page. That background photo, we've got 9 different industry photos. They will just randomly display each time you log in. You might get 1, 2 in a row. You might not see one for a week. They're just randomly selected. Once you get into the menu, you'll see it's different. Now at this point, I'm going to move from the PowerPoint into the software to show it to you live. We're going to come back to the PowerPoint a little bit and just kind of go through all these screens just to make sure we've covered them all. But for the most part, these items are in the PowerPoint so that you can show them to other people, review them later. But for right now, I'm going to jump into the software to go through these changes. So let me start by going to the resident selection page. This is where you arrive in the software when you sign in. In the past, all of these menu items down here were down the left side of the screen. By moving those menu items to the top and removing them from being visible at all times, we've widened the workspace. The screen is now wider. There's more room on the screen. We had requests from users that, you know what, I'd like to see the resident photo. I'd like to select the resident by resident photo. So right here we have this little icon. It says select residents by photo. If I click on that, this grid down here is going to change to the resident photos, and then I can select using that. I have all the same filters up here at the top. I just have resident photos now. I can scroll through this. I can search just like I've done before. When you select somebody and you highlight them, then it's going to put their photo and their name up here. This is the current resident that I'm working on if I went and made other selections. If you want to see a close-up of that photo, you can click on that photo. And that's not just from the resident menu, that's from any screen in the system. You can get a bigger view of the photo on the screen. Now, as you've worked with the software before, we have pretty much the same tabs that we've had in the past, resident, prospect. Now, in the past, we did have 2 tabs, one called facility and one called system. That was a little confusing in a way because you didn't always know whether the master file setup that you were looking for was on the facility tab or the system tab. The reason we had the 2 tabs is when the software was originally designed, it was designed that you could have multiple facilities within one database. And that's still a capability in the system. And so your master setup, if it was something that applied to all your facilities, you found it on the System tab. If it was something specific to an individual facility, and each facility could have different master files, that was on the Facility tab. But the way it's worked out is that everybody uses a single database per facility. This system performs better. It just works better to have one facility per database. And so we don't have the multi-facilities. If you had a number of small facilities, maybe 10, 20, 30 beds, you might put them into a single database. But anyway, that's kind of the reason we had the facility and the system tabs in the past. To simplify it, we now just have a single settings tab. The user tab and the reports tab are as they've been in the past. You'll notice the look is a little different. It's got a more modern look, emulates other web applications. Now, when I select a tab, like the resident tab here, I have the different areas of the software, ADT, charting, accounts. Each of these items was its own group of selections down the left-hand side that could either be expanded or collapsed. Now they drop down. You hover over it, it drops down. I know myself, and I've seen other people have these issues in the past. When you first start experiencing hovering type software like this, hovering menus, you might hover over accounts, and as you bring your pointer down, you move away from the menu and it disappears. And that can be frustrating to a new user who hasn't used drop-down menus before. So what we've done here in this system is we give you the ability of either hovering over it or clicking on it. So if I click on accounts, now I can move my mouse pointer anywhere on the screen I want, and that menu will stay there until I either select an item or click off of the menu. So when you're using these drop-down menus, you can use it either way. You can either hover, drop, and click, or you can click, then move around, and then click. Either way. The facility. The other thing we wanted to do, we wanted to clean up the look here. You know, there used to be this date in small characters. Your username was in small characters. So we've made the username a little bit larger. We've removed the date and the facility code from the screen. You know, I've always got a date and time down the lower corner of my screen. But there are times when you're connecting to maybe a server, maybe a multi-facility organization has facilities in different time zones, and they do want to see what the time is for that facility. So if you do come up here and hover the pointer at the facility name, it will show you the facility code, the date and time. So we do have that information available. It's just not always on the screen. Other comments we had gotten from users is, you know what, I'm going to move into physician's orders, and then I'll talk more about that. So I've got Becky Adams here. I'm actually going to select Ted here. And I'm going to then select physician's orders and go over to physician's orders. Now, one of the things that people complained about is the name was not always prevalent on the screen, the resident's name. So physician's orders, if I'm in physician's orders, with 652 and earlier, you would see physician's orders here, then you would see the resident's name, and then you would see the HR number, account, etc. So again, to make it easier to know which resident you're on, we've added the photo. We've got the name in larger font right next to the photo. The name of the application I'm in has been moved over here to this little panel. And then we separated the HR number, account number, all that information over here, just to keep it separate from the name, make it easier to see the name of who I'm working on. Okay, moving to another resident. One of the things that people had asked for was, if I'm in physician's orders and I'm working on TED here, I'd like to move to another resident without having to go back to the resident selection screen. So we've added this resident drop down over here. So if I come over here, I can hover over the residence. I do have the ability of going right to the resident selection page, which I can also do just by clicking on the resident tab over here. If I click on the resident tab, that would take me to the resident selection page. If I come and hover over this, come down here, I've got the resident selection page. But I can also scroll down, find another resident name, and go to that resident without going back to the resident selection screen. So I selected Rosie Longfellow. I now see her photo here, her name's here, and I'm on her screen. So again, I can now move within an application from resident to resident just by hovering over this resident selection drop-down. Settings. I'll go into settings. Again, this is pretty much as it had been in the past, but we don't have items under facility and system anymore. They're grouped under general, ADT, clinical, AR, processes, and then tools. If I wanted to go to a certain area in the master, I just come down here and select one of these. And we'll go to this screen later when we talk about physicians' orders. If I click on the Reports tab, I've got reports, got the NetSolutions connection. Once I click something like clinical reports, expand out physicians' orders, this all works the exact same. Exact way it did before. It's just the tab looks a little different, and this isn't down the menu at all times. It's only here when I'm hovering over that. The other thing that we've made the change to is that not all users get into settings. Not all users go to the user menu where you assign new users, assign groups, assign security. So if I'm a user and I don't have any rights to any item on the user tab, this user tab where I can go in and add users, groups, licensing, all this information. If I don't have rights to anything on this tab, then this tab won't display here anymore. So you might have nurses that only have residents and reports, only 2 tabs. Again, we're trying to make the software easier for the people who are using it. Okay, I think I've gone through everything I was going to go through on the new user interface. Let me jump back to the PowerPoint. We talked about the drop-down menus. Let me go on to the slide. So, the settings, there's the tools. NetSolutions connections, I didn't really talk much about that. So, where we have on the resident tab, ADT charting, etc., up on the left menu, one of the highest sections on there was the NetSolutions connections. And that's where you can go to the financial suite, care tracker, therapeutic, etc. So these items are on the NetSolutions connection drop down. And I just remembered another item I didn't talk about was the, you know what, I'm going to jump back into the software. There are a couple more things I wanted to show you. Okay, so I got my username up here. This little icon here is a sign out icon. So if I want to sign out of the application, I can just click that sign out icon. Kind of a standard internet software icon. The other thing that we don't have here on the menu is the, we call them common tasks. Common tasks are now on this little menu. Select resident. I don't really have to come here. I've got the resident there. Select facility. If I have multiple facilities, I will want to come to this common task menu to select facility. Now in the future, in an upcoming version, we're going to put a little drop-down arrow next to the facility name here. So if you have multiple facilities, you can just go over here and click this drop-down and pick your facility here without going to the common task menu. At the RQS viewer, email, help, etc., there's a sign out spot here, but again, you can use it here. Okay, so let's jump back to the PowerPoint. Talked about sign out, common tasks, the financial suite. If I'd gone over into the financial suite has the same changes that we're seeing in the resident suite. Got a financial tab and a settings tab. And on the financial tab, this is where I'm doing my daily work. I've got an accounts payable, general ledger reports, NetSolution connection menus. We talked about the little icon there and how you can click on that to see the resident photo. If I've got the resident photos, then you can select that and you can go back to the detail grid. So this little icon allows you to move back and forth between the resident photo and the resident grid. Now in an upcoming release that we'll talk a little bit more about in the sneak peek section, we will give users the ability to specify what they want as their default. Right now, it's going to always default to the grid that you've been used to today, but in the future, you'll be able to specify whether you want the default to be by photo or with the detail grid. We saw how when I select somebody, he's highlighted, his name and photo are up in the left. We looked at the drop-down menus. This is moving from resident to resident in an application. Okay, so that's the user interface. We'll have a question and answer session at the end of this webinar, so if you have any questions on that, bring them up at that point. The other thing we wanted to talk about today are the physician order changes. While there are other features, new features in this release, 653 release, the most significant application changes occurred in the physician order package. We made improvements to order consistency. We added the ability to do multiple administrations. As you've known in the past, if you had an order that was 25 milligrams in the morning, 35 milligrams in the evening, you had to set that up as 2 separate orders. Or if you had something that was, you have 3 tablets for 4 days, then 2 tablets for 3 days, then 1 tablet for a couple days, that had to be 3 different orders. These items can be now added as 1 order. Same thing with a PRN and routine. That could be 1 order. So if the doc says take 1 a day and then a second as needed, it's 1 order. You can have multiple administrations with an order. For the clients using e-prescribing, we added a special instructions field, and we'll look at that. Okay, order consistency. We needed to address that. People are going to complain a little bit when they first get this release, and they were used to typing into the build order, order text field, and it would cause issues if somebody didn't pay attention to what they were doing. So you cannot make changes in that field anymore. If you have e-prescribing or e-charting in place, and it's a medication order. Other orders, you can still do that. So let me just talk why we are making this change. So here's an order. Let's say I'm adding this order. I enter Coumadin 4 milligram tablet, and when I click build order, it created directions, it created order text. Now, what the user could do is the user could then come up here and say, oh no, the medication was supposed to be aspirin. So they make the change in the order name to aspirin, which then changed the generic name, but it didn't change the directions, it didn't change the order text. And then the user might glance down there, and where they saw this 4 milligram, and they say, oh, I better put 325 milligrams. So they put 325 milligrams there, and they saved the order. Now, I'm sure not very many users did this, but you can see what kind of problem it would be. In the order text in e-charting, it's going to say, Coumadin 4 milligram tablet, warfarin, sodium, 325 milligram oral at 2000. Okay? That doesn't make sense. And then the pharmacy is going to get an order that said aspirin 325 milligram tablet, 4 milligram oral at 2000. Well, again, that doesn't make sense. So what we did is we made some changes. Again, this applies if you are using e-charting or e-prescribing, and the order has an NDC. So if it's a medication order, these new rules apply. If you're entering a dietary order or a therapy order, some other type of order, these rules won't apply. You'll still be able to enter text in the order text field. And so what the changes we made is entry in the order text field is no longer allowed. We're going to build the order text for you based on the fields above in the screen. We want to make sure the fields on the screen match what's showing in e-charting. Whenever you make a change to a field, we're going to blank the order text. You're going to build it again. Building the order will also build the directions of the pharmacy, unless it was manually entered. That way, we're going to guarantee the information going to the pharmacy matches what's on the screen in order entry and matches what's in e-charting. Now, a lot of people used the order text to enter information for taper meds. You know, if it's between 0 and 100, give this. Between 101 and 199, give this. So we added a multi-line field that can be used for those cases, and we'll show you that. Now, if you want additional control, I talked about how the directions will be overwritten unless you've entered them manually. If a physician comes in and enters directions manually, we're not going to overwrite their directions. So again, if you want additional control in the system, you could choose that nobody can enter directions manually. There's an option for that if you want to use it. Directions must be built by the system. And for those other orders like dietary orders and therapy orders, if you don't want people entering an order text, you can disable it. I'm not recommending you do either of those two. It's just a couple of options that could give you additional control. Okay, for 653, multiple administrations. I mentioned that you might have routine and PRN, give 25 tablet, etc. So these are items on the multiple administrations, why it's important that we added this functionality. Okay, we talked about special instructions field. Special instructions is a new field. When you enter something in special instructions, excuse me, it will automatically be added to the end of the order, to the end of the directions, and it'll be inserted in the order text. Special instructions is a field that is part of the setup screen where you would set up your orders. And what we've done is if a facility is licensed for e-prescribing and the order code has the NDC field, we are going to add special instructions automatically for you so you don't have to set this up. Now this is a one-time update. If you don't want to use special instructions, you can remove it. But we figured people will want to use special instructions, and we didn't want to have every facility go out there and add this field. So we're going to automatically add it to you for medication order types if you're using e-prescribing. We also added the new capability where you can have a multi-line field. Now, we're not adding this for you automatically. If we find that that's needed, we could change our setup. What we did is people already have fields like instructions or instructions 1, instructions 2. And so they may want to continue using those fields. They may not want to have another field added. If you have a field that was instructions 1, whatever, general text information that you could enter in, there used to be a limit of 99 characters. And if you have it be 99 characters, you'll get a single line like you have in the fields today. But if you put the number of characters of 100 or more, and the limit's 250, it'll turn it into a multi-line field that can scroll. And then when I enter that information in, I'll get multi-lines showing up in the order text and as well over in the e-charting. So here's what this would look like in e-charting. 0 to 4, call MD. 10 to 12, give them 4 units, etc. We also added a way to view that over on the PO summary screen as well. If you hover over this, you can see that entire order text. Now, if you wanted to make that change in your system, then you're going to come into the Settings tab, come down to the Order Type Summary area, select something like Medications, modify the available fields, and then right here where I have an Instructions, I'm going to edit that, and I would bump the length up from 99 up to 250. So this is how you would go about changing an existing instructions field or general text field to be a multi-line field. Or if you don't have something like that, you can come in and add one. You could just type in instructions, 250, give it a sequence, 14, 15. If you may notice, it doesn't have to be unique. It just puts it in that same general area. Okay, multiple administrations. The screen has changed a little bit. We used to have like the time code and the day, time code and amount fields up here. Now we've moved anything that applies to administration down into an administration section, and the fields that are entered once per order are at the top. So order date, the medication, day supply, that's new special instructions, diagnoses, indication for use. If you're going to use the multi-line instructions, all of this information is once per order. Now, down below, I can have one administration that starts on this date. Maybe it stops here. This one's 25 units of this item at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then at 5 o'clock at night, I'm going to give 35 units. So again, I've got multiple administrations for one order. When you're out on the PO summary screen, we have this new little icon here that allows you to hover over it and see each of the order text. This is a 4-item one. I'm going to come back to this. I'm just going to jump into POs real quick. And we'll pick resident. Okay, so here's one that has multiple administration times. If I hover over that, I can see the order text of each one of them. Again, if I want to see the full order, I can hover over the order over here as I did in the past. To add a new order, I'm going to click on New Order. In this case, I'm going to type in aspirin. Now, if I'm typing in something like that, aspirin or Tylenol or whatever, something that's like a pain med, and I'm selecting that, if I'm set up ideally in the system, and we're going to talk about this a little bit in a few minutes, but it should be picking the order code for me. I hate it when I see somebody where the nurses have to pick the order code before they enter the order. If you set up therapeutic classifications, you can have the system assign that for you. I've got the order up here. You can type in the special instructions. I'm just going to type in with a glass of water. One thing that I've noticed people haven't always taken advantage of is the day supply. If I put in day supply here, what that's going to do is it's going to automatically calculate the end date and time for me. I'm going to remove that for a second here. And let's see, if we come down here, now with the changes we've made, we now have the time code down here where I might put in QD, select once daily. This 10 is defaulted from there. If I hadn't entered that 10 there, it wouldn't default there. But if I have something that's going to be for a certain number of days, like for 5 days, I can put in 4 or 5 days here. It's going to say once daily for 5 days, and it'll calculate this stop time for me. I'll just put in 1 tablet. I'm going to click Build Order. That's going to create part of my directions. And again, if I want another administration, I can click Add Administration. Now I'm working on a second administration. So maybe this one's going to start on the 13th. So this one ends on the 13th at 11:28. This one's going to start on the 13th, 11:29, and maybe this one's BID, and we're going to give maybe 2 tablets. Oops. Okay. Build order. So I've got my order text. I've got my directions. You want to see the full directions. What it does, it only puts 140 characters there, the plus sign. I can click on View Directions of Pharmacy if I want to see the full thing. That's what goes to the pharmacy. I'm just going to go ahead and save this. But again, I wanted to just show you, I guess somehow I got messed up, no time value. Well, that's not very good. I messed up this third one here. Apologize for that. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to cancel out. I just wanted to show you how you click on Add Administration, how these dates work, etc. Okay, let me jump back into the PowerPoint. So here was a taper med. It's got 4 different administrations, each for a certain number of days. We just showed you this, how you can look at what the directions are going to look like going to the pharmacy. We looked at this where you can see all the order text from this little icon. Okay, back to the point I was making when you are selecting a medication. A lot of people use standard orders. And standard orders, they might set up hundreds of standard orders. When you set up a standard order, it's going to fill in much more than the order name. It's going to fill in a number of other fields that you've determined that you want to have as part of your standard order. Another way that I like to see the system used is you set up your default to be med. And when you enter your medication, it will then automatically assign the order code for you. And it does that based on a therapeutic classification. So if I have an order code for antibiotics and I come into the therapeutic classification link, I can specify the therapeutic classes that fall under this order code. So on the example I typed in where it was aspirin and it was a pain, all of those medications that fall under pain type would be under categories and first or second categories with pain. So therapeutic classifications can be set up for each of your different order codes so that when you select a medication, it will automatically assign the order code for the user based on the therapeutic classification of that med. This is existing functionality. This is not new. I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, and hopefully people are utilizing this functionality in the system. MDS changes. Everybody probably knows we have some MDS changes coming out in October. I think it's going to go to beta next week. Should be available to everybody else in September. There's some significant changes made to section GG, some new items in GG as well as IJ and N, and some just other various changes. If you were to take a look at the changes that are made by CMS for the MDS, you'll see they've updated some label capitalization, they added new items, added some different values that you can enter. So all these changes have been coded. They're going through the final testing right now and will be available for beta test next week. This is a list of just the new items. These are the new items in section GG. There's 2 new items in section I, 1 in J, and 3 in section N. So these are the new items that will be showing up in the MDS. Section GG can also be populated by our point of care system. So if you're using our point of care system, all of these GG items are new items in point of care. This is just a screenshot of what the new GG looks like. We've got these items up at the top. These are all new. Do response down here. Okay, the other thing I wanted to do is give you a sneak peek of a future enhancement. And that's going to be called a home page. The home page is our way of delivering information to the user. We've heard that, sometimes users, they got to click on reports and then they come down and they click on census or ADT, and maybe they're not always finding the exact path to get to the report, or there's certain dashboard items they would like to see every time they start their new shift. So what the dashboard's primary goal is, not the dashboard, I'm sorry, the home page. What the home page primary goal is to bring information to the user. So the user doesn't have to go look for the information. Now what we're going to do with the home page is, if you're familiar with like MSN, you have all these little grid or components, and they change during the day. And so ours aren't going to change during the day, but that's what the screen look that we want to look at. kind of like an MSN. I've got these different components. I've got the gray line between them, the little white space. And on the home page, the user's going to get to pick and choose which components they want and what they want in their component. So if I don't have scheduling, I won't have scheduling here. Maybe I'll have e-assignments here. So anyway, we have these different areas where you can determine what do I want to have on my dashboard. This is a username here. And you can see up here where I've got my username here. And between, this is the current software, and this is what the new software is going to look like when this new functionality comes out, probably sometime in 2019. There's the sign in, or I'm sorry, sign out. There's that common task menu. We're going to add a new little icon there called home page. So at any time I'm in the system, I can just click on the home page. Here I'm seeing a physician order page in the background. So I'm not leaving the page I'm working on. I'm just bringing up my home page to do something, look at something, report something. Then I'll close it and I'll go right back where I was in the system. So in this example here, this user has chosen these items to be on their dashboard. This can scroll if you put more than 6 of them on there. There I've got the schedule. This is reports. So if I have common reports that I run over and over, and instead of, going reports, list of reports, accounts receivable, aged AR, I can just find that right here from my home page. So you'll add to the home page the reports you use most often. Scheduled tasks. We have the ability today to schedule tasks and reports. Not every report, not every task. If the report that you are running has a little checkbox down in the bottom that says run in batch mode, that gives the report the ability to run in the background and let you continue to work while that report is running. If it's a report that can be run in the background in batch mode, it's a report that you would be able to schedule. And as time goes on, we'll add more reports to this functionality. So if there's a report that you really like and you want to have the ability to schedule it, contact myself, contact your support representative that you work with, and let them know that that's a report you would like to see us add the batch mode to, which allows it to be run through the RQS function today, and in the future when we have the home page, you'd be able to schedule it. This is a to-do list. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next page here. This is what a different user's home page could look like. Maybe they're going to have 2 different dashboard areas. They've got their scheduled reports. They've got the report selection. They've got their e-assignments. Stretch out here their email messages. Okay, so that was on the reporting tab. And again, every user can create their own home page the way they want it. They'll have a settings page, this home page component. Okay, I want to have a dashboard area. I want to have a schedule, reports. Okay, this was the first one I was looking at. This is the sequence they'll appear in. This is whether they're active or inactive. And if I click on options, I then get to pick the KPIs or the reports that were going to appear there on that item. We're going to have options. We talked about how when you log into the system, it's going to show you the detailed resident selection grid. Maybe you'll want to see the photo grid each time you log in. The home page. When I print a report from the home page, do I want it to be just my favorite residents or all residents? And I haven't talked about favorite residents. I'll do that in a second. And then when you first open up NetSolutions, right now it goes to the resident selection page. Maybe you'd prefer it to come right to the home page or your facility dashboard. So these would be different options. On the menu, right here we have these drop downs. ADT charting, kind of hard to see them because it's grayed out here, but ADT charting, accounts billing. I hover over this, a menu drops down, I pick the item I want. We're going to give you the ability to have some quick links up here. So these headings will move up slightly for users using this. The font will stay the same size, and then we'll add in a smaller font line below it of quick links that'll just take you directly to some item. So those would be what your menu selections are. They would become your favorite menu selections. So maybe your snapshot, your care plan, physician's orders. So if I come in here and check these different menu items off, they will now appear on the second row of a menu, come all the way across here. And I can just come up here and click physician's orders or care plan, and I can go directly to those. If I don't want that second row there, I won't select any of these. But if I want to have some quick click links up here where I don't have to hover and then scroll down and select, I can pick my favorite menu selections right here and have those on that second line. The other thing is that, you know, not all users in the facility work on all residents. Maybe you have nurses that are just working in station 2, or maybe you've divided up your residents for receivables and I only work on certain residents. When I hover over this resident drop-down and I get a list of the residents, I really just want to see the residents that I'm working with most often. If I want to see every resident, I can click on Resident Selection Screen or click on this tab over here. So this residence area allows you to pick and choose which residents I want to have on my quick select resident drop-down. All of these things are what we're going to be calling our home page, and that'll be available probably sometime in 2019. Okay, so we've got time. We've got about 15 minutes for questions. So Alexia, I think she has questions maybe coming to her, or if she can encourage you to ask questions if you have it.
Yes, I actually have a couple of questions. And this was from Kenneth, and I think he just answered it, but maybe just to give it, you know, a real solid answer. Sorry, there's an alert for my calendar. Can the drop-down resident selection menu be filtered with this current release, or is that coming later this year or next year?
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump back into the product. So right here, this resident drop-down, that's in the product today. So when you upgrade to this new 653 SP1, which should be available any day if it's not already, this resident drop-down will be there, but it'll be all of your active residents. If you wanted to select an inactive resident or somebody else, then I'd go to the resident selection screen. But the change will be when I have the home page, I can then define which residents will be on this list. So I would still see all of my residents from the resident selection screen, but I only see my favorite residents or my commonly used residents on this drop-down. But for now, for this first release SP1, you'll see all of your active residents on that drop-down.
Okay. And then, yeah, and we've gotten a couple of questions about when this release is available and where it's available. Could you just go over that one more time?
Yeah, so what I'm looking at right here is I'm looking at 653 SP1, and I really thought it would be available today. It's going to be available any day. You'll get an email. So if you want SP1 today, you can send either myself or customer support an email and let them know that you would like to be an early release receiver of this release. But could be later today, a couple of days from now, I don't know when, but really soon it will show up on the Insider in the normal place where you get updates. I think it's some kind of a download manager. I can't remember the term we have for it, but I apologize for that. But it'll be in the normal place where you would get updates. If you want it prior to that point, you can let us know you want to be an early release receiver of it, and I believe an email will be sent out to all clients as soon as it's available.
All right, thanks, Dave. And then will point of care be an option to appear on the homepage?
Point of care?
Yes.
As far as really the home page is more for reporting. So if and I apologize, I don't know everything about a point of care, but if I go to the reports menu here, and there's a report here, and it's a point of care report, I'd be able to select it onto my onto my reports on the home page. But as far as the data collection buttons, where you would go out and click and say, you know, this person walked 50 feet or this person ate his meal, that would not be something on the home page. The home page is really more for reporting.
Okay, thank you. And then another question from Pam. In physician orders, can the time code field be a required field before saving an order?
A time code?
Yes.
Yes. If I come here to settings, go down to clinical, order type summary, and I pick an order type, and while I've got all of these different order codes that all fall under order type, I only have to pick any one of them because it'll bring me the same information. So when you're defining in physician's orders for your order type medications, these are the available fields on the left here that you have not chosen to use for this type of order. And these are the selected fields on the right that you're choosing to use for this. And any one of them can be required. So here, time code, if I click this, this is my required column. So if I click this option right there, that means that the time code will be required. If I want the diagnosis to be required, I can click that. If I want indication for use to be required, I can click that. So any of the fields on the physician order screen, you can choose whether they're required or not, and then by order type, whether they will be there available or not. If I go to the modify available fields, this is where my fields can be set up if you want to add new fields. I'm going to go to the next field here, my instructions. This is where I can edit a field like that and change it to 250 characters. We talked about that during the session.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Question?
Next question. Do early release candidates get priority support following early release upgrade?
I think I heard, if you're doing early release, do you get early support priority? Is that what you asked?
Yes. Do early release candidates get priority support after they upgrade?
You know, to be honest, I'm not sure. I apologize for not knowing the answer to that. I know when you're doing beta tests, you're a priority. Other than that, I think it's going to probably depend on the circumstances. You know, if it's something that's getting in your way and preventing you from, you know, completing something, you'll be a higher priority than, you know, somebody who's just asking a question on something. But I don't know exactly how those priorities are set. I apologize.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And then another question, are there performance enhancements included in this update?
There are going to be performance enhancements probably in all of the future updates you get, including this one. What we have done is we know we've had some performance issues. We brought in a kind of a specialist for SQL and coding, and we're taking certain processes and moving them to process them on maybe a different processor or you know, I don't know all the technical stuff, but so somebody's probably looking at me and rolling their eyes, but there will be performance improvements over the next, you know, few months, 6 months, whatever. There are improvements in this release, and you will continue to see performance improvements over the next months, maybe year, I'm not sure. But we are going through all of our code, finding areas to optimize the code, finding areas that processes where it's a longer process, you can put it off to another, it's not a server, another processing point. again, I'm not very technical in those things, but we are making improvements in the performance.
Alrighty, thanks again. And those are all the questions that I have now, but we still have a few minutes, so we're happy to leave. You're welcome, Kenneth. We're happy to leave chat lines open and question lines open if anybody happens to have another question or if you think of one in the next few minutes.
And somebody did send me a message here, NetSolutions Management Console. So that's where you would find the software that you can download, is the NetSolutions Management Console. And again, I'm not sure if this SP1 release is out there yet. It will be any day if it's not.
Alrighty, if we have no more questions, then I'm going to give one little plug for our final NetSolutions MDS webinar. That will be Wednesday, August 15th at 1 p.m. Central. That will be hosted by Leroy Bone, who is fantastic and a rock star. So even if you've attended an MDS webinar with us before, I would recommend attending this one with Leroy as well. Feel free to reach out to communications@cantatahealth.com in order to get a registration link if you haven't registered already, and I'm happy to send it to you directly. And question from Holly, yes, this seminar will be available from the Insider. I'm not entirely sure if the PDF will be available in print, but I'm taking note of your question and I will have someone reach out to you as soon as I get an answer. Alrighty.
I guess while we're waiting to see if anybody else has any other questions, I think what we think is something I can show you. When you go in to do a med pass with the new release, we did change the resident selection area here where you see photos. I think that's new in 653. The other thing we've changed with e-charting in 653 is we've kind of moved some of these items over. This poll field was probably more towards the center of the screen. By moving these items over to the right, we can fit more orders on the screen because there's more room for the order text. You'll also notice that new orders will show up with a blue background here. And I think that has been functionality in the past for some orders, but it didn't apply to information orders or PRNs. So the PRNs will now have the blue background as well.
Alrighty, it looks like questions have stopped coming in, so I think we are going to go ahead and sign off and give everybody 4 minutes back. Oh wait, lies, all lies. One more question. Is the new interface optimized for a specific browser?
I don't think so. I know that you can use Chrome. I know you can use IE. I don't think it's optimized for any specific one. Whatever browsers you've been able to use with the previous version will still be supported with the new version.
Do we know any about Safari specifically?
I don't. If Safari was supported in the past, it would be supported now. I know maybe 3 or 4 browsers we're supporting. I couldn't tell exactly which ones they are.
Alrighty, thank you, Dave. Alrighty, any more questions? We've got about 2 minutes, so that's time for about one more question. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Give everybody a little time to type if you do have a question. Alrighty, looks like we are all set to go. So instead of 4 minutes, everyone gets 2 minutes. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your input. And we look forward to seeing you all in future webinars that are coming down the road. Also, please don't forget, an invitation will be coming out in a couple of days for the second Cantata Health Town Hall with our leadership team. This time we are inviting everyone to propose topics that they can, or that the leadership team can then address. Again, there will be a long period of time for question and answer, so feel free to jump in there. And okay, one more question. With the homepage update in 2019, will we have to set up our scheduled reports on our own, or do we have the option to have Cantata do that for us?
One of the things that we're doing when we load the homepage up, we're making a list of items that people would probably like to have on their homepage. So some KPIs, some reports. If you're using scheduling, it will appear there. If you're using e-assignments, it'll appear there. So we've made a list of items that we would think people would want to have on their homepage. And if you have rights to those items, if your facility is using those items, they will automatically appear on your homepage. So as a default, your homepage will have, maybe half a dozen reports, a few KPIs, e-assignments if you have e-assignments, scheduling if you have scheduling. Those items will automatically appear as a first time based on what you use in the system and what you have rights to.
Alrighty. That is all we have time for. And again, thank you all for joining us, and be sure to be on the lookout for the invitation for the Cantata Health Town Hall that is coming up this September.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.